Fong at The Intercept was able to obtain some leaked emails featuring communications between lobbyists who are seeking to increase the number of government contracts given to tech companies that provide certain services at the border. So some of the immigration policy and border patrol policy that we're seeing today is being shaped and implemented by these very tech companies and by the very lobbyists that work for these tech companies. So let me give you a few examples. There is this push for license plate monitoring tech at the border. Now, some of that technology had already been implemented, but there's a company that was pushing to replace some of that technology and add more to it. So these lobbyists represented a company that I'm about to tell you about. A few days after the exchange, this lobbyist representing Perceptix, a tech company that sold state-of-the-art license plate recognition cameras and technology to the government, emailed her team to confirm that Representative Fleischman had asked about Border Patrol's plan to modernize its LPRs, as we asked his office to do, along with a link to a video clip of the hearing. So this is all about the communication they had with Representative Chuck Fleischman and the video that they shared to show that he was doing what he was supposed to do based on what he was paid to do, provided that evidence. So let's just take a look at the video real quick and I'll fill in some more gaps.
This committee has instructed CPB to pursue LPR modernization, including in the fiscal 2018 omnibus. What is CPB's plan to finally modernize its LPRs at the ports of entry?
Thank you for the question and the committee's support for additional funding to modernize our LPRs. It's a critical tool not only to identify potential security threats that we need to target for greater inspection at a port of entry, but also potential risk to our officers. So we appreciate that support.
So these lobbyists have their meetings with Representative Fleischman. I'm sure that there's some money exchanged in the form of legalized bribery here in the US. And then Fleischman shows up to ask McAleenan questions. And of course, McAleenan is the acting head of DHS. And essentially says, like, what's going on, bro? You got those funds in order to implement this technology. When are you gonna do it? And McAleenan, of course, thanks him and thanks lawmakers for appropriating the funds in order to implement this technology at the border. This is exactly what government corruption looks like.
McAleenan at that time was the chief of Customs and Border Protection, and this is how this scam is run. I'm actually kind of a little bit amused that this is a scandal. I mean, I love the story and it's great investigative work. And it's amazing how cheap you could buy these politicians. We'll get to John Cornyn and how much he was bought for in a second. But yeah, this is what happens every single day in Washington. What did you think was happening? They go and they give them campaign contributions and then they sneak in tons of money to the companies that are giving them campaign donations. Of course, when you legalize bribery, you get bribery. That's how it works. And so the only funny part of it was that he read the thing that the lobbyists wrote for him word for word, and then the lobbyists he writes the email taking credit like, hey, we got the schmuck our water boy to say exactly what we told him to say, so now I get paid, right? Another thing that they do is they'll take former staffers or confidants and trusted people to these politicians, pay them a lot of money, right? So that's another form of the corruption. They do that with John Cornyn. They get to him through people that worked at his office. You know how much they paid John Cornyn over 2017 and 2018, over 2 years? Just $1,500.
That's all it takes.
Yes.
And now look, mind you, they have to legally bribe several different politicians, but what's it gonna get up to? 100,000, who cares? You know what the contract was for? $125 million.
Right.
So you sprinkle in 1,000 here and 1,000 there, and voila, you get $125 million. That's called crony capitalism. That's what's wrong with our election system. That's why conservatives should want to change it just as much as progressives do. That's why you should go to wolf-pack.com/join, okay? If you don't get this corruption and this money out of politics, they're gonna bribe every congressman and every senator. And you think public financing is expensive? Are you kidding me? For every $1,000 or $1,500 donation, they're getting $125 million. That's what's expensive and why we have a giant deficit.
Absolutely. exactly what you said, which is that this horrifying thing and the disheartening thing about this story is not that this is happening because we already know that, but for how little that this is happening. To buy somebody off for $1,500, a campaign contribution for a dinner for $1,000 and $500 for the next year, and you get your $125 million bill. That's horrifying. And guess what's happening is that these private security firms are watching this and they're seeing this is very easy money for them. And like Perceptics, which sounds like a drug I don't want to buy.
It was like terrible side effects.
Yeah, terrible side effects. It's like Planetaire, it's like Geophedia. All these groups know that they can milk this government for the money, and it's mostly these Republican representatives that allegedly don't want to spend your taxes.
Right.
Federal taxes, want to shrink the role of national government in interfering by using your tax dollars to pay $125 million for license plate reader technology. It's frightening. I mean, and the way all these groups are connected to private security, we've unearthed a discussion on private prisons and the way that that's flushed with private contractors and private security firms and how they're milking the government for these contracts. I don't think we've really made the connection how these groups are doing it with immigration and border security. And I think that's maybe the tipping point with this story.
You know, but I did come up with a fun idea in the middle of this segment. Since they're so cheap to buy, maybe we should put together some money and say we're from the barking lobby and we're gonna pay you campaign contributions of $1,500 here and there to bark like a dog.
I have no doubt that some of them might do it.
Yeah. For corporate Republicans and Democrats, they'd be like, oh, that's easy money, $1,500. I usually have to give away hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money for that. Yeah, sure, yeah. Would you like me to bark like a dog in private or in public?
Right, and which type of dog? Can you just send me an audio clip so that I can get a sense?
Right.
Yeah. Look, for me, the big thing is, yes, we all know corruption exists. And when I say we all, people who are paying attention know it exists. I think that there are a lot of Americans who are buying into this notion that the Republican Party and the Trump administration are actually principled on immigration, that they actually want to protect Americans. They actually want to ensure that migrants aren't supposedly draining our resources. No, the Trump administration, with the help of Republican lawmakers, they're definitely draining our resources. They're giving these massive contracts to private prisons, these tech companies that do the surveillance at the border. I mean, just to give you a few examples, we've given contracts, this is taxpayer money, for unmanned aerial vehicles all at the border, tower-based security tech, radars, detention facilities, biometric tracking technology, and you don't think that this technology isn't gonna be used on us? I mean, some of it already is being used to surveil us, but this is all about giving Trump's buddies giant federal contracts.
Absolutely.
It's not about a principled stance. It's not about slowing migration to the US or slowing the number of asylum seekers in the US. They love brutalizing them, they love dehumanizing them, right? That also helps them with political gain. But at the end of the day, this is all about making their buddies money using our taxpayer money.
Well, and this is the irony of this too, which is that they say they need this for our security, and they're spending millions and millions of dollars, and then the next round after they've written all those checks, oh, that wasn't enough. We need a border wall,
right?
That for billions of dollars. So pay for that. So this stuff is not part of deterrence. It's really just a part of making their buddies wealthy. And like Cenk was saying, that there is a revolving door with people who work at these PR firms, these lobbyist firms that work with these private security tech companies that have relationships with people who used to work in the offices of these politicians.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.